Hi everybody, and welcome to my studio today. My name is Lonna Lamb. I'm a decorative artist. I'm here to help you learn how to paint, and it's just one of my greatest passions. If you are new to my YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you'll know every time I have a video coming out. If you are coming back as a current subscriber, I just want to say thank you so much. I appreciate every single one of you. So let's see what we're going to paint today. We're going to paint this awesome wave. First time painting a wave for me like this, and I just thoroughly loved how it came out. We are going to use DecoArt Americana, not Americana, we're going to use DecoArt Traditions paints, one of my absolute favorite paints, the medium body acrylic paint, and I just loved the pigment in these paints. It was great. Get a little bit of glare. But this is just a super fun project. I can't wait to paint it with you. So let's turn around to my paint table and let's get started. All right, we're going to get started on this project. This is what we're painting today, this beautiful wave. And so this one here that I have in front of me is on a 9x12 just board, like an MDF board. Okay, you can paint it on a canvas, whatever surface you want to paint it on. I really liked painting it on this particular surface. It just took the paint so well. And I did paint a larger version of this on a 20x20 canvas. Didn't quite like how well it painted on the canvas. Just didn't like all of the texture and the grabbing of the brush. I needed to probably do a little bit more prep work to my canvas before I started. So a good tip if you're going to paint it on canvas is to lightly sand that canvas to begin before you even do anything. Okay, then apply either a couple of coats of good white paint or a couple of coats of gesso. Let each layer dry and lightly sand. That will give you a fairly smoother surface to paint this on. Also, watercolor canvases are a little bit smoother, so you could go with that. But this was a very nice surface to paint on, and so I'm going to be painting on the same kind of surface today, only I'm going to do an 8x10. The other one was a 9x12. We're going to do an 8x10 here. So to get your surface ready if you're painting on wood, the first thing you want to do is apply a coat of multi-purpose sealer, 1 or 2 coats, depends on how well it goes onto the surface. This is an extremely important step. I apply it with a damp artist sponge and get a nice coat on there. I let it dry. I lightly sand it. If it needs another coat, I will apply it, and again let it dry and lightly sand it. This step, the reason it is so important is because it seals the wood. It keeps the paint from soaking into the wood, so you don't have to apply as many layers of paint, but it also helps the paint stick to the wood. Also, if you're ever painting and you want to do any kind of taping off of something, this will help so that the paint doesn't peel up with the tape. So, important step. Okay, then apply a coat of white paint or white gesso, whichever you prefer, on here. Let it dry and lightly sand it, and we're ready to go on here. So I'm going to show you the paints we're going to be painting with. We're going to be painting with DecoArt Traditions paints. They are probably my favorite paints to paint with. Such a nice creamy texture, and the pigments in them are just delicious. So the colors we're going to be using is raw sienna, and they sell them in tubes like this now. They used to come in bottles like this. Now they come in tubes. It's a medium body acrylic paint. Okay, so we're going to have raw sienna. We're going to have titanium white, carbon black. You can get these online at DecoArt.com. I'll have the link below. We're going to have Napthol Red. You could use Napthol Red Light if you want, but Napthol Red is a prettier color, I think. A Vermillion. We're going to use Hansa Yellow Medium. And if you have other brands of paints that have these same colors or similar colors, you can definitely use them. We're going to be using a few blues: Phathlo Blue, Ultramarine Blue, Colbalt Blue Hue, Aquamarine. I love this color. It's a beautiful color. And a Cerulean Blue. So those are all the colors that we're using in this particular project. And it's going to be a pretty fun one, I think. So we've got our surface base coated with white. It's dry. It's lightly sanded. So now we want to measure down with your T-square or ruler. And I'm going to measure down about 3.5 inches. Originally I was going to go 3 3/4, but I think I'll keep it at 3.5. Now I'm going to lay my T-square across here and line up with my mark. I don't have to take my line all the way across because our wave is going to come up and around. So I'm going to come in about the 2-inch mark on this size of canvas or surface and just draw a line across there. That's for my horizon line. Now, most of you that have painted with me know that I sell packets on my website, and the packets include written instructions, color by color, step-by-step photos, and a line drawing. This won't have that because this is really something that you can create the design on your own. Okay, it is truly an easy one. So we want to start creating the shape of our wave here, and I want it to come in about here. So I'm just going to use this pencil, and I'm going to start bringing it around. And when we paint it in, we'll refine this a little bit, and it's going to come up here and across, kind of a little bit at an angle there, and come across. And it's going to work its way all the way over to this edge and come down right about here. And so as we get over here, it will come down right about there. So we're really just creating this beautiful, and I think I want this to come up a little bit higher, so I'm going to bring it up a little bit higher, and I'll go ahead and erase this other line. And I want that little bit of a almost sharp edge there. And that's going to round over, and that's going to have another little bit of a sharp edge kind of coming that way. So this is kind of just going to give us the idea of where our wave is going to go, and we can adjust that as we go, but it gives us a guideline for where we're going to start. So it's just basically 3/4 of a, I don't want to say oval because it's not really an oval, but at the end of it, it's going to look more like, this area is going to look more like an oval. So we're going to start getting our paints out. So let me get them out of my palette, and then we'll start painting. Alright, before we start getting our paints out here, as I was looking at this, I decided I want a bigger area for my sky here. So I'm going to come down 4 inches on here instead of the 3.5, and then draw that line over. I'll erase this one. Wave coming this way. Okay, so also if you want to draw in, you do not have to, but if you feel like you need a guideline for the mountains or whatever is back behind here, you can certainly draw yourself some shapes in here to kind of give yourself an idea of where you're going. And it's going to kind of go off the canvas there. You can take it all the way across, you know, because you don't know how your wave's going to do, so you can take it all the way across. And then in front of this one, we'll paint this down just a little bit, but in front of this one is also like some closer, like stone things. So I'm just going to draw a separate line down below that one, which is probably about 1/4 of an inch. Not quite, it's 3/8 of an inch. you can make it 1/4 of an inch. And then you're going to have some bigger stuff kind of going on here, and be irregular here, a little bit taller there, and then this part will be reflected in the water. So if you need to draw those things on there, you certainly can. It's not necessary to do it, because the more free-flowing and organic you can be with this painting, I think the better that it's going to turn out. So I've got them on there for your benefit, but you don't have to have them on there. Okay? Alright, so now I'm going to get all my paints out and we'll get going. On my palette here, I've got my white, my Hansa yellow medium, Vermillion, Napthol Red, raw Sienna, and some carbon black. I'm going to spritz the side of my palette with some water. And we're going to start painting in our background back here. So I'm going to grab my 1/2 inch Blue Squirrel Dynasty brush. Wake up the bristles. Excuse me. And we're going to begin painting in our sky. Now, we have a section right in here that's going to be the very brightest of the sky. So I'm going to take a little bit of white and tap a little bit in here. This is where the glow of the sun will be the brightest, right here. And then I'm going to go get some Hansa yellow, put some of that in here, and blend them together. Wipe off my brush as I pick up paint. A little bit more white. We want it to be lighter here. We'll come back in and add more layers as we go here. So we'll be adding more white in there as we go. And then just kind of blend this out a little bit. That's going to be the brightest area of our sky. Not really sure what that noise was I just heard. And then we're going to go into, I'm going to take some yellow and mix a little bit of orange with it. Oh, that's a lot of orange. Back it out a little bit. We want just a little bit of orange. And we're going to start adding some of this into our sky. Come right down to where your heels are. The hills that you have added in here are. Will be a darker color over here than it will on this side. This is going to stay a little bit lighter over here. Get a little bit of water, a little bit more of the orange, and add some of that in. These are just beginning layers, so I don't want you to really concentrate too much on how they look right now. This is just getting a layer in the sky, very gently going across it, blending it out a little bit. I am going to pick up just a tiny bit of red on the corner of my brush and work that in, and put some of this kind of streaky through here so we can blend it with the color that's in here. We're going to have some clouds in here. And just blend it into that wet paint. And we get a nice little effect up there. Up here at the very top it's going to be darker, so I'm going to grab some of the raw sienna and work that into my brush. And I think I'm going to have a tiny little touch of black in there. Not very much black at all. Just a little bit. And I'll put some of this in here. Now if you're lifting paint, I'm lifting a little bit. My paint was starting to dry there. So I'm very, very gently putting some of that in there. I'll come back and darken that soon, but we want a little bit of darker color up there. Alright, let's put some of this color down in our watery area. So we want to start with some of this yellowish orange color. And we'll put it in down here. And all this is going to be darkened up. This is just the beginning of colors in here. Just to get us going where we're going. A little bit of this kind of brownish color. We'll put it out here on this edge. This is that dark color that we put up there. It's kind of a dirty yellow color. Raw sienna. It's got a little bit of that red in there. A little tiny touch of black. That's too much black, so we'll just back it out by adding a little bit more raw sienna. I'm going to get a little bit of water on my brush. I'm going to set some of this over here. Bring it down. And I'll gently blend those. And I'll just, whatever's left in my brush, I'll just kind of let it come off down through here. I'm not too worried about this area right now, but I'm just going to get the rest of the paint kind of out of my brush and start creating where we're going to lay in our light colors for our wave. Okay, I'm going to wash this brush out because I want to go to a smaller brush now. And I'm going to go to my black silver brush. This is a 12. This is the short bristled one, I think. No, this is a longer bristled one. So our tree is back in here. We want to create that kind of dirty color that we have here. I'm going to grab a little bit more orange and put it in there. A little more raw sienna. Tiny little bit of black. Oh, a lot of black. Just get a nice kind of dirty, rusty color here. This is what we're going to put in for our hilltops back here. And I'm just kind of scrubbing it in along that pencil line that I drew in there. If you haven't drawn a pencil line, this is where you can just kind of be a little more creative. I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow. And just follow those shapes. Nothing really specific has to be done here. I'm going to mix a little bit more, grab a little bit of orange and the raw sienna and a little bit of black. I think I want a touch more black in there and raw sienna. Don't want them quite so orange. Wipe that off so I can just kind of pull this and blend it a little bit. You don't have to be very specific here with those back there. In front of it, we'll go a little bit more orange with the color, I think. And go up to that line. Now remember, this is all undercoating stuff. I don't want you to worry at this point how it looks so much. Let's grab a little bit of black. Now you can go to a smaller brush if you choose to do that. Get a little bit of water. And I'm going to put these in here, in this area in here. I'm just using the corner of my brush and kind of scrubbing that in there. A little bit of black, a little bit of raw sienna. And we'll come back and definitely darken these, but this is just giving us an idea of things. Okay, so that's given us an idea of where we're going with our painting so far. So I'm going to go down to my 12 short, or my 12 bright here. And we're going to grab a little bit of white and add some more brightness right here. This is going to be a very bright spot right there. Then go into my yellow and mix a little bit of white with that yellow. Not too much because it will make it more opaque, and I want to keep it a little bit more of a transparent color. Work that in a little bit. I'm really just kind of scrubbing it in there. I don't have a ton of paint on my brush, so I'm just scrubbing that in down across the horizon line. Let's grab a little bit of the orange on our brush with some yellow and some raw sienna. A little bit more raw sienna. We want it to be a little bit more of a golden orange. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit more raw sienna and yellow, and then we'll add some orange in. Raw sienna and Hansa yellow medium. Some of this in here. And we'll go into that orange. Lightly. And some of that. And then we'll go into our raw sienna and black. Now I'm just kind of skimming across. This is just kind of filling in any gaps that we left open when we painted in our sky the first time. But we want some darker stuff going on here. I'm going to try and start forming a little bit of cloud shape here. Wipe my brush off. I want to grab some of this orangey yellow stuff and blend it down here. Alright, I'm just going to wipe out my brush. No need to go wash it. Grab a little bit of red and a little bit of orange. A little bit of yellow, a little bit more yellow, and start create a little bit of some cloud shapes. So I only loaded it on one corner of my brush so that I can scrub with this corner that has the paint, and then the other side has water. And if you don't have water, just go grab a drop of water over here on your palette, and I'm just using that side to kind of blend out and give me a more defined cloud shape. And just create your clouds however is pleasing to you. It's really just a little swirling scrub here. Every artist does their clouds different. These clouds, not the focal point, so we don't have to be too careful with these clouds. I'm going to put a couple of lines along the horizon because the clouds in the distance will be more flat, so we kind of need that look that there is clouds back there. Okay, so now I want to grab a little bit of white, and I'm just going to let that blend in my brush with that color. Now on my original one, let me bring it over here. I did my lightness on my clouds on the top and a little bit on the bottom. Or you can keep it straight on the bottom where the glow from the sun is hitting up there, or if you have it more like I did on my original, it's more like the light is kind of a little bit behind the clouds, so it's really up to you. And this is where you can just grab a little bit of highlight and put on there. Don't do tons of this. We don't want these clouds standing out. That's why we mixed that white with the color that was already on our brush, because we didn't want these clouds to be distracting and become our focal point. Okay, I'm just going to wipe off, go into that darker color, maybe grab a little bit of red in there, get a little drop of water, and I want to put a little bit of this at the bottoms of the clouds. I'm just scrubbing it in. Just with the corner of the brush. Just a little bit of that red on the bottom. Gives a little bit more form to our clouds. Okay, I think that looks pretty good right there. So I'm going to leave the sky. I'm not going to do anything else to the sky till towards the end if I feel like it needs adjustments. Because if I continue to work on it now, I need the colors around it to see what needs to be brought to a lighter or darker value in the sky. But for our mountain ranges back here, I'm going to put out some of my blues now. I'm going to put out the Ultramarine Blue. I'm going to put out all my blues. Ultramarine Blue, Phthalo Blue. I really don't remember what color I used in my mountain back here because I just grab paint and mix it, and if it's a nice value that I like, then I go with it. So this will have all of our colors on our palette now. That's all of our colors. Okay, so I want the mountains to be just slightly dirtier. I don't know how else to say that, so I'm going to grab my raw sienna, a little tiny bit of black in there, and I think I'll grab the Phthalo Blue, just a tiny bit, that's a lot. More raw sienna. I may have grabbed a different blue to begin with because this looks a little more green than my first color. Ultramarine Blue, that's a nice color. Alright, so let's just create some little darker areas on our mountain ranges back here. I still want to keep this area more on the dirty orange side, so I'm just going to blend some orange in with that. And kind of scrub that in front. A little bit more orange, and maybe a tiny bit of red. Raw sienna. Grab some yellow. A little blue. Oh, no, that was a lot of blue. Let's not do that blue. That's going to make it too green. Let's go back into some orange. There we go. That nice dirty orange color. And I think that's going to work out well for that color. I'm going to wipe my brush off and then just take some of this paint that's left in here and scrub some of it in here. Just what's left on the brush. I'm not going to go back over and pick up any more. Okay. I'm not going to darken these up right yet. And we could mute these down a little bit more back here. Okay, what blue did I use? Oh, that's the blue I used right there. That is Colbalt Blue Hue. A little bit of orange. Raw Sienna. Alright, Colbalt Blue. Keep this color a little bit on the left or right side, and then on this one over here I'll put it more on the left. Okay, that looks nice. Okay, let's work on adding some more color values in here. So I'm actually going to go to my large brush here. Now this area coming right through here is the very brightest. So I'm going to take my yellow and my white and make a bright yellow here. And I'm just going to begin. I'm up on the edge of the brush, just stroking back and forth in this area right here. I'm going to be adding more colors in here, so I'm just getting a little bit of that bright yellow in there. Okay, I'm going to go into just yellow, and this might not show up too much. Wipe my brush off, go into a little bit of orange. I'm going to mix it with that yellow. And we're going to start pulling some of this down through here into our light area. It's almost like a dry brushing that I'm doing here. I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, just a tiny little bit. We're still just creating our specific areas. Around this, so I am going to take some of this orange out here, and I don't have very much paint on my brush, so I'm letting it just, whatever's left, just kind of come off. We always want to go back and forth in the water area here. We don't want to go up and down or at angles or anything. We want to keep this always going back and forth, so we can create those highlights in there. Before I move to the bluer parts of the water, I want to add some more color out here in my water. I'm going to grab some raw sienna and a little bit more on my brush and begin just putting some of this in here. And I need to add a tiny bit of black to that. A little bit more raw sienna, tiny bit of orange, a tiny bit of yellow. We're going to make this dirty kind of color. We're just starting our layer of darker colors out here, just going back and forth, just letting the tips of the brush just kind of do its thing. Alright, I'm going to bring this on down through here a little bit. Let it blend in with that little bit of orange. Just a little bit, because that's going to be mostly blue out there. Alright, I'm starting to lift paint there, so I'm going to get out of that color. And I think I'm going to go to my blues now and work a little bit of blues in here. So I am going to wash my brush off and get the moisture out of it. I'm going to go into that Colbalt Blue Hue. And I want to thin this down. I want to add, I'm not sure which color I want to add. This is the Cerulean Blue. So Cobalt, Teal, and Cerulean Blue, and it's just a wash of color. And we're going to wash this in up here. This is our undercoat of the water up here. We'll bring this all the way over to the corner, although it's going to get darker over here. We want some of this lighter color through here. This is our wave, okay? So it's going to, shape this direction. It's not going to go across like this. It's going to follow that shape. Alright, so while that's wet, I'm actually going to take my short brush and grab a little bit of the Cobalt Blue Hue. A little bit of that on my brush. And while this is wet, I'm just going to squiggle in some stuff going on. We'll add some layers on here. Some of this will fade back. We'll put probably another layer on here of this. Different colors, but we got to get some stuff started in here. So we want this to be while it's still wet. Just a few little squiggle lines in there. Okay? We'll go back to our bigger brush here. And we're going to start adding some other colors in here. This is Aquamarine. And I want to start putting some of this in here. Still, we're just using a wash. We're going over that yellow. We're going to create green a little bit, and that's fine because there is green in our wave. So we've really just got light, very light colors all around this. So I'm going to go and start adding some more colors in here. I'm going to wash my brush out because I don't want my paint to turn green yet. So I'm going to wash it out. And we're going to grab our Vermillion. It's straight Vermillion this time. It's not thinned down with, or lightened up with that yellow. And we'll start adding some of this color in here. And it is picking up a little bit of that blue. No worries. Get some of this over here. I don't have very much paint on my brush. Keep that in mind as you're starting these layers out. As we go, we'll grab more paint, but right now we don't need tons of paint. Alright, we'll grab a little bit of red. I'm going to work that into my orange here. And we're going to put some of that in here. I'm going to get a dot of water. Send that just a little bit so it will come off of my brush a little bit easier. And a little bit through here. Not much. We're going to need some. I'm going to put a little bit out here in the water. This is more from the sky here. Okay, we want tiny bits of this color. This will probably end up being covered up, but we can start some areas of these other colors up in our wave. And I don't want you to really worry too much about placement of this stuff, because there's truly no right or wrong here. Okay, washing my brush out now. Okay, I want to create a little bit of a green color. So I'm going to take my yellow, and I think I'm going to take my Aquamarine, and that's going to make a beautiful green color there. Add a little bit of Cerulean to it. Darken it up just a little bit. We don't want it super bright. And we'll start adding some of this in here. I think I'm going to add a tiny bit of raw sienna with it. Tone it down just a little bit. And just begin adding some of this in here. There's a little bit of it out here. There's some tints of green here and there. You get to be the judge. Okay, just a little bit of green. Alright, let's start adding in some of our blues in here. So I'm going to start with Ultramarine and Colbalt Blue Hue mixed together. And we're just going to start. I remain on the tips of this brush. And we're just going to start getting some darker blues in here. This is going to be way more blue over here, so even though it's kind of a greenish color now, it'll, in the end, it should be more blue. This is still all undercoating stuff. Underpainting. Okay, this part of the wave is darker, and it gets lighter as it goes across there. We want that to stay light out there, so I'm not going to add any paint there right now. Okay, I'm going to go into my Cobalt Blue Hue. Is that what I'm in? Yeah, Cobalt Blue Hue. And start adding some darker stuff in here. And I'm just using the brush I'm using is an old brush. It's not, you know, it's kind of wore out, but it still is very effective. And that paint wasn't quite dry there, so I'm lifting it a little bit. Try and smooth that out. Little bit of Aquamarine Blue, or Ultramarine Blue with the Cobalt Blue. Okay, you see how we're starting to build our wave now? Looking pretty darn good. I'm going to side load some of this Aquamarine Blue. Oh, that's a lot. Maybe not quite that much. Add a tiny bit of Cerulean Blue to it. And now I'm going to wipe my brush off because I want mostly water here. We want a sheer color of this. So I've just side loaded with a lot of water in my brush. And we're going to add some of this color up here in the corner. Work it out. I'm going to get a little bit, I think, of the cobalt in there. And add that in. Keeping that pretty transparent out there. While it is wet, I'm going to mix all three of my darker blues together. A little bit of Cerulean in there. Cerulean will help keep it from being as dark. So I'm putting this on while it's wet. Just kind of going over some of those places where I went before. And creating some new little areas in there. We still want that to stay light color, okay? Alright, let's start adding some darker colors in here. That Colbalt Blue Hue is probably going to be the one I'm going to use the majority of the color for. I'm going to start adding some darker colors in here. This is going to end up being pretty dark out here on this corner. But we still need the look of waves, so we need those strokes that are coming down and around. I'm going to work some of this up into this. And when you're doing this, you're not making precise strokes. You're letting them kind of blend and fade away. And this is going to be pretty dark up here. Okay, before we start adding more to our water, I want to go in here and work on these stones here, because they're going to have a little bit of reflection. So I'm going to take some of my black and I think some Phthalo Blue, maybe some Ultramarine Blue, kind of make it a blue-black color so it's not 100% black. And we'll paint in our stones here. Stones, land, whatever you want it to be called, that's what it is. Okay, that goes across there like that. Okay, and now I want to make the reflections in the water, so I'm going to mimic this shape and everything down here below. For our reflection in the water, make that a little bit thicker line so we can add our highlight across there. let that dry because it needs to be dry before we highlight across it. All right. I'm going to brighten up these areas down here. So my white and my yellow. Let's see here. And I'm going to take this. Our highlight is going to come across the water right here. And so I'm going to scrub some of this across the water here. So we can start seeing a little bit of reflected light on the water. It's going to come right up to that wave. And put a little bit of it out here and a little bit over here, but it's mostly going to stay right in that path. Okay, a little bit brighter yellow. I'm going to add this in here. And I can put just a little bit of this yellow out here, not a lot of it. Just a scooch, just kind of here and there. We'll go into our orange now. I'm not cleaning my brush off in between. Let it become lighter as it comes up to the front just a little bit, but we want the darkest of it will be back here in the deeper part of the tunnel. And we can put a little bit of this orange out here. This is all going to remain darker over here on this side. And while I have this orange or the red, either one, doesn't matter. I think I'll wait for the red because the red is the color that I want to use in here. I'm going to add some red in here. Now I'm not going to add as much of this color. Some down here. And we can take this color out and about in our wave a little bit. Okay. I'm going to wipe off. And actually, I'm going to wash my brush off because I want to grab a little bit of yellow, straight yellow. And try and blend this a little bit. We don't want to really see where it starts and stops in here. We want it all to just kind of meld together. Grab a little bit of white, mix it in there because we want our bright area to be more prominent. Alright, I'm going to add some Aquamarine and a little bit of Cerulean Blue mixed together. We need varying colors in our wave. We don't want it to all be one particular color. And this aquamarine is just a gorgeous color. So we need to have some of it in here. And a little bit of it can come out up in here in the water, but the water's going to stay mostly dark, so let's not try and make it. We're not making blue water here. The blue water is the wave. This out here is pushed back, and it's the, I'll get a little bit of water so I can keep this a little bit lighter out here. Looking good, looking good. All right, let's go into our Colbalt Blue Hue. Beautiful color, beautiful color. We're going to add some more green in here in a minute. But we want to start creating some of this color. I'm going to get some water on my brush so it will come off my brush a little bit easier. We want blurred lines. We don't want anything, no hard detail lines here. You can kind of see how these all look. Let me zoom in. These are all like blurred. That's kind of what we're going for there. We want to keep it a little bit on the blurry side. We don't want to cover up all of our other colors. We're just putting another color in here on top. This is layer after layer after layer after layer. I'll wipe a little bit off. Take some of this color out so we can start darkening up our water a little bit. It's really dark up through here. And we're going to start adding some dark stuff. This is just the Colbalt Blue Hue. I will probably add some black to it here in a little bit to make it even darker. Now if you're doing a canvas and it's a wraparound canvas, be sure that you paint your edges. Taking a little bit of this around the edge, just kind of tapping it in, hit and miss kind of thing. You don't have to do the whole edge. You know, we're just creating some dark areas in here. Let's mix a little bit of green, so I'm going to grab some yellow and mix it with the blue that's in my brush already. Create a nice green here. A little bit of green out here. And just a little bit here and there. A little bit up here. I'm going to grab the Aquamarine and mix that in. Make a little bit different color of green. More of a blue green. And a little bit more of that aqua. And I think I'll add some cerulean to it to kind of tone the brightness down. Washing my brush out. I want to grab some Ultramarine Blue now and some of my Colbalt Blue Hue and a tiny little bit of black. That's going to make this really dark blue. And we need to start adding a little bit more black in there. This really dark I'm going to take a little bit of my green that I mixed here and add it into that dark blue mixture. There we go. Alright, let's start adding some of this in here. Remember, you're not covering up all your other colors. Now we're creating our darkest values here. Grab a little bit of water in this so I can move it a little bit more off my brush. Add a tiny bit more black, just sneak up on that black and add that in here. And this all out here is much darker. We're still going to go darker yet. This is not the darkest value that we're going to put on here. Looking pretty good. Getting some nice layers in there. I'm going to go up here and wash in some more color up in here with that Aquamarine and Cobalt, or not Cobalt, Cerulean. I'm going to keep it a little more on the Cerulean side, I think. Some water in it down. I'm just making a wash here. And keep it very sheer. A little bit more water in my brush. There we go. Alright, I'm going to take some of this and stroke some of this in here. We'll probably fade down in there because it's got a lot of water in it. Blue Hue. Let me add some more of that out here. I'm mixing it with the Cerulean. Put this in here. Bring some of this into this lighter color because it's a lighter color. To this more transparent area of the wave. This is more transparent up here, so it's not gonna have a whole lot of color in it. Okay, I'm going to work on the water a little bit more before we finish our wave out. So on the water, we need a little bit more of a dirty yellow color. So that's going to be the raw sienna, the yellow, and a little bit of black. Mostly raw sienna. And we're going to start streaking this in across here. A little more raw sienna. Can break up that highlight in the middle by going across it. We got a lot more bright to add on there, so you need to create the break along that back thing back there. So I'm just going to remove the majority of the paint out of my brush and grab some white just on the corner of my brush. I'm just grabbing a little bit of white. And I'm going to take it along this back here. And we can put a little bit of it across our shadow itself. And bring some of it out here. And I'm going to break that up just a little bit more. Let me take my black so I can create a little bit less of a hard line here. Or less of a wide line. So you can actually take a small brush and do that. And that looks much better. So we're going to continue on and adding some of our raw sienna. I'm going to add a little bit of blue to it. I think cobalt just gives me this kind of dirty blue color. Let's be darker. This is the Cobalt Blue Hue. Some raw sienna. Dirty blue green. And still will have to be darker than this. Get some ultramarine blue. And a little bit more raw sienna. It's really dark out here on these edges. Grab a drop of water here. Because this edge, we're just going to pull it in. We don't want our wave to be done yet. That's why we need to do this now. So when I come back with my highlight, I can kind of streak in there. It's still going to have to be darker, but we're getting a good start here. Okay, that's more green down there, a little bit more green than what I want, but we'll come back with our blues and take care of that. I need it to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to grab a little bit more black and a little bit more ultramarine blue, a little bit more raw sienna. And I want to make sure this is dry, because if it's not dry, I'm just going to pick up what I put down. There we go, that's looking good. I'm going to take my finger and kind of buff that out. Wasn't quite dry there, so. That's kind of a mess there, but it's all fixable, so I'm not too worried about it. I don't want you to worry about it. Just paint. Let it dry and go back over it, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to have to let my water dry before I do any more to it. So I'm going to start adding my really dark color into my wave. So I'm going to go with Ultramarine Blue and Cobalt Blue. I think Cobalt Blue is the color I use the most in this project. And then we need some black in there. I really want to darken this up. Alright, let's start creating some really dark stuff going on in here. So I'm just taking the edge of the brush and just kind of scrubbing it and kind of wiggling it around, letting it kind of do what it wants. It's going to be really dark out here. Dark stuff going on around the edge here. A little bit of dark stuff kind of working its way down in there. Dark. It's really dark out here. I never paint two of my paintings the same. Never. Unless I'm lining them up in a row and painting them that way. But they never come out exactly the same. Some of this is going to go over here. Grab a tiny bit of water on my brush. Go up in here. Still just creating some dark areas in here. And we can put a little bit of this. Let me mix some more. Oh, that's a lot of black. Ultramarine Blue and Cobalt Blue. This is a really dark color here. And we're going to put some of this. I'm just kind of tickling and tapping and skimming. Not too much out in there. Just barely skimming over that. We'll come back in here and add some lighter colors back in here. It needs to be really dark along the edge out here. I want to put a little bit of darkness in here. Up in here, add a little bit more in there. Okay, now we've got our dark value in there. We need to work backwards from that one. So we're going to go into some lighter colors, and I'm just going to keep my brush, the paint that's on it, and go into some Cerulean Blue. And still a little bit too dark. So I'll just wipe the paint off. Grab some more of this. And you'll do a lot less of this color, so do not put tons of this color in here. We're just bringing back a few pops of color that we may have lost in our darkening up here. I'm going to wipe my brush off and go into this Aquamarine and grab some of it. And that's just a little bit too much, so and I'm going to keep this color a little bit closer here, because this is going to be where a lot of the highlights are going to hit. The reflection from the sun will hit up through here. So I'm going to keep it a little bit more. And I don't like that color up in there. Alright, I'm going to grab some yellow. Mixing my two lighter blues, Colbalt Blue Hue, which was already on my brush, Aquamarine, and a little bit of yellow. And just a little bit of this in a few places. Let's put some down here. my brush out. I want to get a little bit of the red and orange mixed together on the corner of my brush and brighten some of this red reflection that we'll be seeing. Some of it I covered up completely, so I want more of it through here. Wipe my brush out and take what's left and put it out here in the water. Our wave is looking pretty good, I think. Pretty good. Okay, so I want to try and finish up most of my water out in here now. So this area, which, let me get some more ultramarine blue out. It's the raw sienna and a little bit of black, a little bit of orange, and I'll probably have to add, I'm just going to take some of that blue mix and mix that in there. A little bit more raw sienna, I think. I want it to be more on the raw sienna side. Alright, this is that raw sienna, a little bit of black, a little bit of, well, that blue mix, which was black and blue mix. It was ultramarine blue and black and cobalt blue hue. And I'm going to have to lighten up right there. So I'm going to wash my brush out and grab some just raw sienna. And work some of that in right here. Bring some of that across a little bit. And I'm going to wash my brush off and grab some yellow and raw sienna. Okay. We got lots of highlights to add in here yet. And reflections. I'm looking at the sky now to see if there's anything more I want to do to the sky. I think I will brighten up a couple. I don't know. I think I'm still going to wait. I'm still going to wait to brighten up any of the clouds, because I've got to really brighten this area up and bring it reflected down in through here. So I'm going to start creating a little bit of a highlight out here in our waves. So we'll take some white and a little bit of blue, using Aquamarine Blue, but you can use Cobalt Blue, whichever one you want. And I'm just going to kind of scumble in some beginnings of some highlights in here and make it look a little splashy, kind of like waves. Yeah, just a tippy tap, tap, tap. We'll bring a little bit out here. We'll be brightening these. We have some highlights going up through here. And this is going to fade down in there a little bit because I've got that blue mixed in with it. And just kind of work your way around your wave, creating some highlights in here. Just tapping it in, just tip, tap, tap. We'll definitely be brightening this up, so. Okay, so down here we can put a little bit because we'll have light passing back through here a little bit. And a little bit out here. Not much though. Not tons of it out there. That's looking pretty good. I'll wash my brush out. I want to add some more color in this area here. It needs a little bit more, maybe a bit green. And wipe that off. Go into my Cobalt and my Aquamarine, kind of mix them together on my brush. Now it's darker out there, but I want some of this a little bit brighter blue in through here. And just kind of let some of it come up into the darker water up here. Just a little bit. Because it's going to remain pretty dark. This water is going to remain pretty dark. Alright, it's coming together. Looking pretty good. Pretty darn good. We're going to add some squiggly little lines in here. I'm just going to use a detail liner and add some in here with, I'm going to add a few red ones. Now I really want this to be watered down. I'm going to mix some orange in there, I think. A little bit of yellow. I don't want this to be super bright. This is going to be pretty watered down. And we're just going to kind of add some stuff. Some fine little lines in here. zoom in because I'm not really sure how well you can see the lines I'm adding in here. I'm going to get a little bit more yellow. Turn it this way so I can pull towards me. And add a few in here. I don't want them to be super bright, so kind of tap them down with your finger if you need to. And I'm going to kind of wiggle and squiggle them. Okay, I want to do the same with just mostly red back in here. Tap it down. I don't want them to be super bright. I don't want them to take over the painting here. A few over here. Okay, and then I'm going to make some dark blue here. Cobalt blue, a little bit of black in there. Thin it down. And we need some of this. It can be a little bit on the green side if you need to. You could add a little yellow in there. And we're going to do the same with this color. Thin this down because it's not flowing. Okay, so I do need some of this blue color to come down in here. Just a little bit. It's thin paint, and I'm just kind of scrubbing it in there. That one was really, really dark. Put a few into the lighter area, but not too many because it's going to be... I might grab a little bit more yellow. And I'm just keeping these little squiggly lines in the highlight area. Alright, I need some yellow ones with a tiny bit of orange. More yellow. Voila. Okay. I think I might have enough in there. Alright, let me wide angle out so we can see the whole thing. And let's see if we need some more highlights anywhere. I mean, more of the muted highlights. I think they look pretty good, so I think we're going to go in and add some brighter highlights in here now. So we're just going to use our white. Actually, before we do that, we need to finish the water. So we'll work on the water, bringing our highlight in here. So I'm going to take my white. Let me grab some more yellow out. And I'm going to mix a little bit of this. I'm going to try doing it with this brush. If it doesn't work, then I'll go to a small round brush. I'm just going to skim the very edge. I'm just using, almost laying it flat and just using the very edge of the brush to start creating some highlights across here. And it's going to hit the wave right here and go in through this area. Mix a little bit more here. And again, skimming this in here. A little bit of reflected highlight will come out here. So we can just tap a little bit. This out here. Not too much. We don't want our highlight to get, you know, pulled all the way over there. We want to keep it here in the middle, but you're not going to see too much at first because it's going to fade away. It's going to blend in with that yellow. I'm going to add a little bit more white to it. And we're going to go again. Hit it right there. And go back and forth, keeping it kind of brightest right there in the middle. And I'm going to bring a little bit of the highlight up into this area. Kind of like it's bouncing off right there. Okay, and while I have this kind of yellowish color on my brush, I'm going to tap some right through here because this is where it's going to be the brightest. And then just kind of rub it out with my finger. We want to start creating a little bit of a highlight in this area. I know it looks really bad right now, but we'll get it there. We will definitely get it there. Because eventually we won't really see the top of the rock area right there because it's going to be so bright. So just tap a little bit of that in there. I'm going to take a little bit of this color that's on my brush, and I need a few reflective highlights out in the water. And we're going to have to make it look a little bit more like water here in a minute because it's not quite getting where I want it to go. So I'm going to take some yellow raw sienna. go a little bit more Sienna here. Definitely more raw sienna. I think I'm going to have to add a tiny bit of blue to that. Still not dark enough. Bring some of the dark up a little bit closer. Over here, try and grab some of that darker color. Pull some across from this edge. And from this edge. I just picked up that dark blue mix with the black and the Ultramarine and Cobalt Blue Hue. Probably has a little bit more black in it now. Again, I'm just on the edge of the brush, you know, kind of where it's flat but barely touching. Okay, we're getting a little bit more of a water look here. Like that. Pick up a little bit of that lighter color so I can put a few highlights on here. And that was that yellow and raw sienna with a little bit of the black in it, or the blue mixture in it. I want to finish out our highlights coming through the water here. So I'm going to take white and yellow and mix them together. Mostly white. I want to create this very pale yellow. And I've just got it on, well, mostly on one half of my brush. And I'm going to start tapping this in right here, and then scooching it out with my finger. I want it to be right there. And let it kind of come like that. I'm going to grab a little bit more white and start creating a few bright highlights on here. And as we, don't want that yellow in there. As we get to the wave itself, it's going to hit right there and be the brightest. And then it's going to work its way back through here and out the back. Okay, then I'm going to dip my brush in the corner of it into some white, and I want to add some really bright sparkle stuff in here. Maybe lighten up a couple over here. And we're creating our brightest color right here. Tap a little bit of this up through here. And a bit back here. And then we're going to start taking some white. I'm not going to clean my brush. I'm just going to pick up some white, and we're going to start tapping some brightness in some highlights in our wave here. And it's going to be brighter out here in the splashy areas. I'm just using the corner of my brush. And creating some those highlights that I put in a while ago. We're just going to tap a little bit of white in some of those. And along our water edge, we're going to have a lot of this highlight. Start creating this splash on our wave, and we may have to come back and do this a couple of times. Tap a few out here where it looks like the wave is definitely got a little bit more splash going on. Oop, picked up yellow. We don't want yellow. Although we do want some yellow reflected in that white here in a little bit. We don't want it first. Be kind of loose and carefree with it. Don't try to be controlling at this, really at any point in this wave. We don't want to be controlling. We want to be a little bit more loose. Down here at the bottom, it's got a little bit more of a splash going on. Now I don't have much paint left on my brush, so I'm tapping in some really loose splash areas around this wave. Put a little bit over here. I don't have hardly any paint on my brush here, just kind of letting what's left in there kind of just go out of my brush. I'm going to brighten up where the sun is just just a little bit. I want to put a few little kind of sparkly things in the water. You know how the sun hits the water and it looks like there's all these little sparkle areas. Okay, so up here on your wave, if you feel like any of these need to be a little bit brighter, go for it. If not, a bit brighter as it comes down here. I'll put a few little light ones out here. It's pretty transparent, so we don't want to do too much there. I do want to darken that corner just slightly. I want it to be just a little bit darker. And I'm going to go into my Cerulean Blue and put some of this out here. And actually I want to take a little bit of that blue and wash it on a couple of my highlights, or not. Kind of reflecting some of that water. And then up here on the very top, you can take some orange or some yellow, whatever you can find on your palette that might still possibly be wet, but not very much at all. And put a little bit of reflection from the sky. I still want that to remain mostly white, so I'm going to go back over it with just a touch of white. Ooh, or a lot of white. And I think we might be pretty much done with this project. I think it turned out beautiful. So I'm going to move this one off of the easel. Bring my other one in. I always like to compare my original one to the one that I painted before. I can see some differences in it, but really they're both gorgeous. Move my paints out of the way. And bring in the 9x12 wide angle. Get some glue on my surface here. Okay, there's the two of them side by side. Get them both in the camera shot. There we go. Okay, they look pretty good. This one's got a little bit more green maybe in it, coming down in it. A little bit less red-orange there. I brought the yellow up a little bit farther into that one. And you can certainly do that here. Add a little bit more yellow through there. But I think they both turned out super duper great. I love them both.